yourself, and so this will be a 3-minute.
I will, thank you. My name is Peggy Venable. I'm a resident here. My daughter went to school here, and I'm now a taxpayer. And I also happen to be the State Director of Americans for Prosperity, and I represent taxpayers in that role. Though I'm not here tonight to represent them, I'm simply here to say that it seems that after this last legislative session, there was much gnashing of teeth about budgets being cut and education suffering by virtue of that. And many school districts said that they would have to cut teachers. We have consistently said that there is a problem when there's only half of the education dollars are spent on instruction. And I understand this compensation package includes an automatic pay increase for administrative staff of 3%. No budget has been approved, but this is moving forward. Most people in the private sector don't get an automatic pay increase. So I think there's some disparity between what's going on in education and what's going on in the private sector. And I also simply want to remind you that education is probably not going to continue to get funding at the rate it has in the past. Over the last 10 years, the state has funded education at 5 times the rate of student population increase. So I simply ask you to please consider what you're spending the dollars on, and I would encourage more dollars being directed toward the classroom. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Venable. Okay, board members, Ms. Hanna.
Yes, I just wanted to say once again that I'm pleased that we are in the position that we're in. I applaud once again the conservative fiscal approach that this district has shown, so that we are in a better position than many of the districts that really have been devastated by state cuts. So I'm pleased that we can do that. I'm also pleased that we can offer a pay raise to the many people who we don't always think about, who make sure these schools run. And when we had the opportunity recently, some of us, to be at the Employee Service Awards, to see the employees who served this district with so well for 20, 25, 30 years, the custodians, the bus drivers, the cafeteria workers, that without whom we couldn't educate these children. So I'm pleased that we're able to include them in this proposal.
Thank you, Ms. Hanna. And I'll reflect that too. I think that we hear comments about the staffing ratio, but I do think that, I don't remember what the exact number is, but 75% of all of the expenses that goes to salaries, and the bulk of that is for teachers. And I do think that most of the expenses of the Round Rock ISD are directed either directly to the classroom or directly affect the classroom. So I'm very comfortable and grateful that we are in a position that we can look after our staff, all the staff, and make this a great, continue making this a great school district. Ms. Romero.
I want to echo that as well. Education, and as I have learned through this educational process, being a trustee, is a totally different beast than the business sector. And I, for one, believe that teachers aren't paid enough, and so I am in support of that. And I believe that what we had talked about before, and I think through Mrs. Miller's presentation, we have to be more competitive. And I think by bringing this up, we are emphasizing our competitiveness in the marketplace, and that is good business sense. So I'm comfortable with this pay increase.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Romero. Mr. Coley.
So I think that, I'm proud to serve on a board that always does the right thing for the kids of this district. And one of the things that we're doing is by trying to attract the best teachers that we can possibly get from around the region or around the state, is we're furthering the education of the kids right here in this district. It is a 3% increase, and the private sector doesn't automatically have these step increases like we have here, but people who go into teaching don't do it to become materially wealthy as you can in the private sector, but they accrue a different kind of wealth through working with the kids every day. So yes, there is a difference between public and private sectors, but I don't believe there's a cap in the private sector as to how far you can go We are dealing with essentially government employees here, and we're doing the best with the few pennies that the state begrudgingly sends our way as it is.
Thank you, Mr. Colvin. Ms. Hannah?
I'm sorry, and can I just add, we talk about administrators. We've heard so much in the presentations, and particularly I'm reminded, because who we have in the audience, of Blue Bonnet and Cedar Ridge, how much extra time our principals and assistant principals are putting in without any compensation other than knowing they're helping the kids in this district. So again, I'm pleased with the proposal.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Board members, all those in favor, signal by raising your hand. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much. Okay, I got some questions. Ms. Hannah?
Yes, I think just generally, I think we've talked about this before, but I thought it might be helpful before we start talking specifics. Could we perhaps have Mr. Bingham address the legality of using these bond dollars for these projects?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Bingham's coming forward.
Board members, you have these funds available for various bond issues, and my information is that they're available because projects either came in under budget, what they were estimated for, maybe some changes here and there, basically some savings that went on, and so you have this money, we estimated one number, got approval in the bond issue, and now you have these funds available because you spent less, even though you've done projects or you're in the process of doing the projects and have the money earmarked for it. Your bond issues, when you pass them, have this language, and this is right out of the education code. For example, the 06 one said, and all of them are similar, the issuance of a certain amount of bonds for acquiring, contracting, and equipping, constructing and equipping buildings, purchasing the necessary sites therefore, and then it goes on to say including, and it gives a list of things that could be included. But that language has been held by various courts to say that that is really for educational facilities. So in theory, if you had a bond issue authorized for a certain amount to build a high school and decided you needed 2 elementary schools in place of that, you could do that under that language. And so you can use this money for any legal purpose that you can use bond money. Essentially, that's facilities, equipping the facilities, land. You also authorize some school bus purchases, technology, and things like that. So I think this money that is available, you can use it for one of the legal purposes for bond, and that is, you can also use it to pay back bonds, retire them early. Under the tax laws, you cannot keep it indefinitely because you have a tax issue called arbitrage that eventually will cause you a problem and make those taxable bonds. You're not in any danger of that now, but eventually you could. So does that answer your question, Jim?
It does. Could I ask a follow-up to Mr. Albers? Because you and I spent a lot of quality time together back before 2008 for that bond. We've done those projects, right? I mean, what we saw in the construction report is we're just finishing up really the last of those Bond 08 projects.
By the time we get to the end of the summer, we'll have done everything except the last of the transportation building that Ed showed you a while ago, and the road came with that. And echo on Mr. Bingham's comment, Bond 06 did earn a good bit of interest, back when interest was possible to earn. So that was in addition to the savings on some of the number of projects.
So we're not doing kind of the example which Mr. Bingham gave, which would be acceptable of saying, instead of this, we're going to do this. We've done all this, and now we have money left over.
And I'll further point out that the estimate that you have up there is for only those projects that have already been completed. In other words, we're not touching funds where we have projects that haven't been completed yet. It's only for those that we have already completed. And we know that there's dollars left over, as in addition to the interest earnings.
President, I have a whole slew of questions, but I didn't want to jump in there without some guidance as to the structure of the rest of this topic. There's still somebody that is signed up to speak, and I didn't want to get that mixed in with our discussion, so that's why I was trying to hold back, but I'm hearing more questions, and so I'm asking, how would you like to do this?
At the pleasure of the board here, what's the consensus? We can go ahead and get the speaker out of the way. I just thought maybe if she wants to make a comment, and then we can go, if you want to have any more questions after that, we can go through that. Okay, we'll go to the question here, public comment, back to Ms. Venable again. Agenda item I-14 here. Again, it'll be 3 minutes. Mr. Sellers will give you a 30-second notice, and then give you time.
Thank you. Yes, let's get me out of the way. Because clearly, I have a different perspective on this and would like to just ask you to consider one thing. I've spoken to one of you and asked just how much the school district is in debt, and you didn't know. I think it's really important to taxpayers that we look at how much debt we as taxpayers are carrying. This school district is, according to the Texas Bond Review Board, $744 million in debt, with interest $1.1 billion in debt. That's not incredibly unusual for a school district, I realize that. But I would simply like you to consider the fact that what we're doing for the children, we're really doing to the children. Our kids are going to grow up with this debt. This is really rather unprecedented that today we're carrying so much debt in local governments. Texas has moved to number 2 in the nation in local government debt. Now, I realize we're talking about using bond money that has been approved by the taxpayers. I believe we taxpayers approve this bond money for specific projects. And hats off to you if you are willing to save money on these projects. But I would like to suggest that this savings go to paying interest on that bond money, rather than to go toward new projects. I know that some legislators are talking about and concerned about the fact that bond money is approved for one thing and used for another. And I very much appreciate the complete discussion that you had today and the exchange regarding the legality of that, the code, and the intent. I simply want to make the recommendation that we think about what we're doing in strapping this additional debt on the kids that are in the schools today. They will be paying this debt off. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Venable.